Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For this session, we will start with the respiratory system, with the physiology of respiration. So we take the first part of the physiology of breathing. About respiratory physiology. The exchange of gases, it has four processes and four events in our body. So it has the exchange from the atmosphere, between the atmosphere and the lung, which is called the ventilation, exchange from the air from outside and the air within the lung. Then we have the exchange, or level 2, from the lung to the blood. Then we have the third one, which is the transport of gas in the blood system, in the circulation, which is the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. Then we have the exchange of blood to inside the cells. So those are the four processes. We will continue with them. So pulmonary ventilation, or what we call breathing, in this case, the air movement in and out of the lung, so that the gas will enter in the alveolar sac and continuously it is refreshed. So it is the exchange of gas or between, or the movement of air in and out of the lung, which is, we call it the breathing. The external respiration here, there is a gas exchange. The gas exchange, it is between the carbon dioxide and oxygen, uploading of oxygen to the circulation and the taking out the carbon dioxide from the bloodstream, which is the end result of the metabolism, and getting it outside. This will happen in the lung, in the alveoli, because the alveoli, it has around it a network of capillaries. So we will come to how this process will happen. Then we have the respiratory gas transport. The gas, the O2, it will be taken from the alveoli and it will go to the circulation, to the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. So the oxygen, it will be going through the arterial blood to the whole body, and gas exchange will be there in order to use the oxygen and utilize the needed or demand of oxygen for the metabolism. And so the gas transport from the lung to the tissue via the blood, which is called the respiratory gas transport, and the internal respiration. The internal respiration, which is gas exchange between the blood and the tissues. So we have the external, we have the pulmonary ventilation, which is moving of air in and out of the lung to keep the lungs full of the fresh air and exchange of that air. The external respiration, which is the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen between the blood and the atmospheric air, or the air which is present inside the alveoli, due to the difference in pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the between the alveoli and the bloodstream. Then the respiratory gas transport, it will be transported to all the tissues through the blood vessels in order to be used for the internal respiration. The internal respiration, it is the exchange of gases between the blood vessels in the capillaries, inside the tissues, between the capillaries and the body tissues, it due also to in order to use it for production of ATP. So, or during the metabolism. So it will be utilized by the cell for the metabolism and the production of energy. So the mechanism of breathing, the breathing mechanism, or the mechanical, it is a mechanical process. It depends upon the volume change occurring in the thoracic cavity. So how the volume change? The volume change lead to pressure change, which lead to the flow of gases. We will see how that will happen. Then, if the volume is increased, the gas molecule will be apart. So, between the space between the gas, it will be more. So, the pressure will be low in this case. And in this case, the air will enter in the lung. The volume, when the volume is reduced, the gas molecule will be closer together and the pressure will raise and air will move out. So how that will happen? So we have the external breathing and the pressure of breathing, how it will happen. In case of inhalation or inspiration, what will happen? In order when we inhale the air, how we inhale the air. There are active process, which is the process of inhalation. In that process, what will happen? There is intercostal muscles between the ribs, those intercostal muscles. Those intercostal muscles, when they contract during inspiration, when I take breath, what will happen? There will be contraction of the intercostal muscle which is in between the ribs. So the ribs are coming closely together. When they are coming closely together, they are inflating the chest. So the chest wall, it will go to forward. So the capacity of the chest will increase. So in this case, the capacity of the lung or the volume or the space inside the chest, it will be more. The other thing, which is the diaphragm. We know that the diaphragm is separating the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity. So when it contracts, it will become flattened. So it will go down. So the diaphragm, it will go downward. This will increase also the space inside the chest. So in inspiration, again, two things will happen. Contraction of the intercostal muscles, the muscle in between the ribs. That contraction, it will make the space between the ribs less. By that, the ribs, it will go forward. You know that they are coming in circles, so they will increase the space inside the chest, and the diaphragm, it will go down when it is contracted. So both the processes, the contraction of intercostal muscles and the contraction of the diaphragm, it will lead to increase in the space of the chest cavity. When the chest cavity is becoming, the space is become more, this will create a negative pressure. That will, negative pressure, it will lead that the air will come inside our lungs and it will go to the alveolus. So we inhale air by this way, by contraction of the intercostal muscle and contraction of the diaphragm. So the diaphragm, it will go down, the ribs will go up, so the diameter of the chest, it will increase. This will increase the capacity of the chest. This will make the volume or the capacity of the chest, it will be more. In this case, it will create a negative pressure. That negative pressure, it will lead to the gas or the air from the atmospheric air, it will go inside our lung. So this is in the inspiration. So it is active process, diaphragm contract and come down, external intercostal muscles contract and elevate the ribs. So the volume of the thoracic cavity will increase in this case, and intrapulmonary volume will increase, air pressure in the lungs reduce, it will create negative pressures there, and external air get into the respiratory tract. So this is the inhalation. This is the inhalation, which is taking of the air inside the lungs, inside the respiratory system. Then the expiration. In expiration or exhalation, what will happen? It is a passive process. We said in inhalation, there is contraction of both the intercostal muscle and the diaphragm. Here there will be, after the contraction, there will be relaxation. That relaxation of the intercostal muscle and the diaphragm, it will lead to what? The intercostal muscles relax and depress the ribs. So the ribs, it will go down. So the diameter of the chest, it will become less. So the chest capacity, in this case, it will become less. The diaphragm also, what will happen to the diaphragm? It will relax. When the diaphragm relax, it will go up. So both action, it will lead that the size of the chest cavity, it will be less by relaxation of the external intercostal muscle and relaxation of the diaphragm. So when the diaphragm relax, it will come up. When the intercostal muscles relax, again the ribs, it will go down. So the space in between the frontal side of the chest and the backward, it will be less. So by that, it will push the air outside of the lungs. So the lungs will contract and it will push the air outside. So the volume of the thoracic cavity will be reduced. The intrapulmonary volume is decreased. So the amount of air in the lungs, it will be decreased because it will go out. And air pressure in the lung also increase and the air will be pushed out. Why the air pressure will increase? The air pressure will increase because of the relaxation of the intercostal muscles, and the space is becoming less. And the diaphragm also, it is relaxed. Also, it lead that the space inside the chest, it will be less. So it will lead to the size of the volume inside the chest cavity, it will be less, and it will lead to exhalation. There is sometimes what we call it forced expiration. Normally, we said that the expiration is a passive. Passive, it means that it will go spontaneously. It doesn't need effort. So the characteristic of breathing, that it is from the normal characteristic of breathing, that it is effortless. We are not paying effort in order to get the gas from our lung outside. When it does need an effort, or we are in need for what we call it forced expiration. Expiration is normally passive, as we said, but sometimes it can become active. When it will become active, it will become active if respiratory passage are narrowed by spasm of the bronchioles, of the bronchis. In case of bronchial asthma, bronchial spasm will be there. So the windpipe, it will be smaller in size. So in this case, the relaxation by itself, it will not be able to push the air outside the lungs properly. So the person who has bronchial asthma, he is in need to pay an effort to have some contraction of intercostal muscle in order to push the air outside. Also, what we call it clogging of air with mucus or fluid, as in bronchitis and pneumonia. So, in case of bronchitis, mucus, sometimes it will be accumulated in the wall of the bronchi and in the wall of the trachea. So, that will make it narrow and interfere with both with inspiration and expiration. So in this case, forced expiration, it will be there. What are the muscles who are involved in this process? We have the internal intercostal muscles. So internal intercostal muscles are activated to depress the ribs or the rib cage more, to contract inside and keep push the ribs inward. By that, it will create more pressure over the lung that will help in the exhalation or pulling out the air from our lungs. Also, abdominal muscle, when it is contract and help to push the air of the lung by squeezing the abdominal organ upward against the diaphragm. So, when we contract our abdominal muscles, in this case, it will push the abdominal content, the intestine and stomach. It will be pushed up. By that, it will push up the diaphragm, and it will lead to pushing the gases outside. So the internal intercostal muscle contraction and contraction of the abdominal muscle, both of them, they will force or make the chest cavity more narrow, and they will push the air out of the lung. This is, we call it the forced expiration. Is it normal? No, it is not normal. Because normally the breathing is passive. But here, in this case, it is active process. It is forced process. Why it is coming like this? Because in this case, it is due to the narrowing of the breathing pathway, due to narrowing of breathing canal, due to narrowing of the trachea or bronchi, either due to spasm or due to accumulation of fluid or mucus in the airway. That will make it narrow. So in this case, it needs force to push the air out. What about, we said that the lungs and also in the chest cavity we have what we call it the intrapleural pressure. The intrapleural pressure, it is always negative, and it should be negative. Why it should be negative? If it become equal between the pressure become equal in the chest cavity or in the pleural cavity or in the chest cavity due to any reason, due to any cause, what will happen if it is become equal between the inside the lung and outside the lung? It will lead to contraction, collapse of the lung. So the lung, it will collapse and it will not be filled with air due to the increased pressure outside the lung, outside or around the lung. So for the pressure due to any cause is becoming high around the lung, either in the pleural cavity, so if fluid is accumulated in the pleural cavity, or if there is injury of the chest wall that make air or bleed enter inside, or due to bleeding there, or due to sometimes due to infection and accumulation of fluid, all of those, it will lead to compression over the lung and it will lead to it will interfere with the pressure. Because of that, the chest wall, it has to be intact. If any injury to the chest wall, it will lead to collapse of the lung. So we have to seal it. We have to keep the chest intact. We have to keep the chest cavity intact in order to keep the negative pressure in the chest, inside the chest cavity, that will permit and keep the contraction and relaxation of the lung properly, and the filling of air inside the lung, it will be active, and the breathing will be going smoothly. So this is essential to keep the lung functioning and interpleural pressure become equal. If the interpleural pressure become equal to the pressure inside the lung, in this case, the lung will shrink and collapse. So that person will not be able to breathe well. So the amount of air that will come inside that lung, which is collapsed, it will be very less, and the gas exchange, it will be affected. Definitely it will be affected. Because of that, we have to keep the pressure always negative inside the chest. if any injuries happened, we have to deal with it as fast as we can in order to keep the breathing in properly. For the next session, we will start with the respiratory volume, inshallah. Thank you.